Hi, this is Emily. Hi. I'm gonna be talking tonight about something that's really sad for me, for the family, and it seems that life is sometimes not always how we hoped or wish that it would be. Certainly, it's hard to express sometimes. But I guess in my own way of helping deal with all that I've been going through, it's healthy for me to talk. Um, I'm relatively a shy person, and I've struggled since the age of 4 with being transgender. I know people who see my videos kind of know my story, but I'm wearing glasses right now for this video because it's kind of a very depressing kind of conversation I'm going to discuss, and I don't want to discourage people from viewing the video, but I'm going to be talking about a serious issue that affects many people. Um, First, let me just tell you, I've had the unfortunate experience of having to take my son yesterday to the hospital, psychiatric hospital, in Long Island, South Oaks. My son is 14, he's a teenager, and he's our love. He's the love of our life. He's a joy and a pleasure, and it just breaks my heart sometimes when I feel I can't help him. And sometimes I just want to just pray to God to help my son. I know that we're not perfect, but life is not easy. And when you're raising a son who struggles every day with autism, it really makes me sad because my son is so desperate to make friends that when we go out, my wife or myself and my son, he wants to approach kids and just tell them, "Hi, how are you? My name is Maddie. Will you be my friend?" And it's just heartbreaking because Maddie is such a good kid. Why is it that he suffers so much? And I know the pain that he goes through, because I also went through that same kind of pain myself. I was a little 4-year-old little boy who knew in her heart that she was really a girl. And I lived with that my whole life. I couldn't tell anyone. And now I see it all over again with my son. The loneliness, the isolation, the pain. I'm sorry I'm emotional, but it's very hard to go through this. I lost my father 4 years ago to suicide, and it was very tragic as he walked down the block from my sister's and something happened. I don't know what happened, to be honest with you, but he took his life by jumping into the pathway of a speeding train, and he was killed instantly. And my son loved his grandpa, and they had such a wonderful relationship. My son got to experience a nice, beautiful relationship with his grandpa for 10 years. And he was so distraught, my son, that he couldn't even go to the funeral or the wake. It was too hard for him to deal with. Anyway, for autistic children in general, life is not an easy. It takes a lot for an autistic child just to get through the day. And my son has been struggling since he was just a little boy. And he's 14 now, and we're desperately trying to find the right school for him. We've been searching, and we've been going to the school district pleading for him to be placed into a residential school for many, many years. And it took me having a nervous breakdown after losing my job and starting my transition from male to female, everything just caught up with me and I just couldn't take it. I just fell apart. And the sad thing is suicide has crossed my mind on many occasions because we're in the midst of financial crisis. Job market is awful. I am very depressed. I'm sick in my mind right now because I'm plagued with thoughts of suicide and I'm also plagued with depression. And I struggle with depression since I was a little 4-year-old when I knew deep down in my heart I was the wrong gender. But I couldn't tell my mom or my dad. I couldn't tell anybody. And I remember as a little boy, which I think I mentioned in Facebook, I asked my mom when I was just like a little kid, why is life so sad? And she asked me, why do you ask me that, honey? And I tried to keep a brave face without tearing up. And I said, because I feel different from anybody else. And I'm very shy, and I don't relate to people very well. And my mom looked at me, and she gave me the biggest hug, and said, honey, you're different maybe, but that doesn't mean that you can't be true to who you are. I never told her really about my difference or my reason for difference. I just kind of identified it as being completely shy. And she reacted with the reply that we'll all go through periods of times where we don't believe in ourselves or we're shy and we're afraid to approach someone and talk, and that's normal, son. Life is not always a pleasure. It's hard. But as long as you feel good about yourself and you do the best in whatever you choose, you'll find your way. And when I think about my son, I want to offer him similar advice about life. It isn't a pleasure always. Life is a struggle. But it also is a beautiful thing. It's just that you have to find what you like. And for me, actually, what I did just to cope was I cross-dressed. Cross-dressing is when you wear the clothing of the gender opposite to the sex that you're born. So, obviously I was born a boy, male, but I was gravitating towards women's or girls' clothes. I had to. It was the only way I felt natural, normal. I felt very comfortable when I wore a dress. And I also identified as a girl. It wasn't just wearing dress. It was what I felt in my heart. And that is something that not many people understand, because transgenders are not very common. However, with that said, I think that there are more and more transgenders now than there ever was. And a lot of children are experiencing transitioning much earlier than it was in my generation. I'm trying my best to cope with all of the obstacles I face. I'm on disability and long-term disability. Actually, I'm taking a trip up to Albany on Thursday for the Social Security disability for my son. So, let me get back to the issue at hand. I want to focus on depression, because depression affects many people, and sadly, not many people really give credence to the legitimacy of someone who's depressed. Employers actually look down upon people who suffer depression as if they shouldn't be depressed. Let me ask you a question. When you go through life and you suffer hardship or you lose somebody who's very near and dear to you, how do you feel? If you don't feel depressed, then you're not living normal life, because life is about emotions. Life is about pain and suffering and struggle. It's not all about being happy and doing things and going to movies and living in a fake world. That's not what life is all about. Life is hard. Life is a struggle. Life is having to work for 50 years of your life, and then once you retire, in many cases, you're too old to appreciate life. When you're working in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s and your 50s and your 60s and possibly into your 70s, when you do finally retire, let's say at like 72, who the hell is going to go take a cross-country trip to California? You're supposed to do that when you're in your 20s or 30s, for crying out loud. I'm 52. I finally started my transition to become a woman. I wanted to transition when I was a teenager, but it wasn't meant to be. Plus, anyway, thank God I didn't, because I wouldn't have met my wife or had my son. So there is a blessing, too, in my transitioning much later in life. And I always wondered how this would affect people and how it would affect my family, especially my wife and son, and it's not easy. But for me, it's something that I have no choice over. It was either I transition or I just be miserable, and I am suffering. But as Emily, at least I feel good. I can go out, I can feel good about myself. The clothes are very important to me. I've always been into very nice, pretty outfits, and it always makes me feel good when I can wear a dress and present as a female. And what else makes me feel good is when I'm dressed as a female. It's one of the best feelings, because I struggled all my life. I used to go to work in a suit and tie, but underneath I wore a dress because that's how I coped. But I was hiding. I was hiding in the closet. What good is that? So when I finally got the courage to transition after tragedies, it felt great to just shed the suit and tie and to wear the dress and the female jackets and the shades that I enjoy wearing. But I'm also a father. I'll always be a dad to my son. And my son is courageous, and he's got a lot of obstacles ahead of him. And I'm worried for him, you know? The truth is, I've been depressed for quite some time, and I've been very distraught. I've been distraught emotionally, and I've been distraught mentally, and I lost my self-esteem and my confidence. I am suffering from social phobias. I can't be around many people. I can't even see myself in an office setting where I'm around people. If I am ever going to work again, either I'm going to have to work on my own, or I'm going to have to work in like a secluded area where I work by myself, or I work from home. Because I cannot work in an office setting, especially in the last job that I had, where I felt like everybody was scrutinizing me, and just, I couldn't live like that. I was like, I felt very uncomfortable, and it was awkward, and you know, I felt good as presenting as Emily, but I didn't feel normal in that working environment, because I was treated nice by some of the staff and my supervisor, but I also felt there was a distance between the owner and myself, like as if he ignored me, and that didn't do much help for my psychological well-being. Plus, I've been struggling with depression, and to come out takes a lot of courage. And to be honest with you, I never really thought that I would even come out. I thought I would go to my grave never living as a female. I thought I would just die being in the closet. And the sad reality is that many transgender do go to their grave never truly being who they are, never expressing who they are to people. And that is very painful and sad and frustrating, because since I've been Emily, I just love going out and being presented like this. And I have a lot of good things that happened to me. I lost over 70 pounds. I went from a size 16, 18 waist in a woman's size to a size 4, 6. And I could never envision that before. I used to be fat. I used to have a fat face. I used to have a gut. Now I'm very petite. And I feel very good, and I'm very much a woman in my own ways. I express myself as a woman. I walk in the street confident as a woman, even though I'm just going to doctor appointments. But the fact is that I'm going out and I'm doing things. I'm not able to work. I don't know when I'll be able to work. But I have to figure out a plan, because I don't know. I don't know how long I have to live, but I certainly would like to continue living to see my son grow and hopefully see him make a turnaround, and so I can have time to live as Emily. I still love my wife. I still love my son. I love my family. I would never walk away from them, nor would I want them to walk away from me. I have the unfortunate reality that I'm facing now with a strained relationship with my sisters. They completely ignore me. They don't listen. They don't seem to care. And that's unfortunate, because I'm a good person and I'm not trying to hurt people. I'm not trying to force my transgender situation on anyone. And my sisters have young children, but look, we live in a world where there are people who are different, and you can't judge people. You have to realize that some people really struggle emotionally, and just because they're different doesn't mean that they can't be treated with respect and love just like anybody else. All I ever wanted in life was to feel good about myself, be happy, find something that I like to do, have a family and a son or a daughter. That's all I ever wanted. I didn't want to be a multi-millionaire. What the heck does money do for you? I would just need money to survive, to take care of my family, and hopefully to leave something for my son and wife. And that's why suicide has come into my mind so much, because with the threat of foreclosure and going into a possibility of being forced out of our house, especially in the winter time, I would much rather see my family protected and have my life insurance pay out while I just go and just take a sleep forever and finally get away from all the struggle that I've went through, and then my family will be protected. And I believe over time my son would graduate from school, and he'll also achieve success. The hardest thing is how he would deal with my demise. And I know I'm getting into a topic that not many people enjoy listening to or relating to, but the fact is we're in the worst economy that you could ever imagine, the worst job market. And how would I be viewed if I was now in the situation where I had no choice but to go on interviews? How would I explain the fact that I've been out of work for 6 months already? And it could be a year, it could be 2 years, I have no idea. My son isn't even going to be placed in a residential school until June, and it's November, and I'm certainly not going to be able to work with all of the concerns of him getting placed in a school that hopefully will work. And I just got a proof of Social Security disability, which I had an attorney help me get on my first attempt. And what the heck would it be? What rationale would it be for me to get the Social Security disability and then automatically go back into the job market? It makes no sense. I am not able to work right now. But the scenario is, if I had to go back to work, how could I interview and be... I can't lie on an interview. I have to be truthful. I would have to tell the truth. I would have to say, look, I'm male to female transgender. I'm presenting as Emily. I'm a CPA. My name is Edward D. Ionelli III. But I'm presenting as Emily Ionelli. I'd even have to clear it with the AICPA. And then I would have to explain why I've been in the hospital so many times, 4 times in a mental hospital, psychiatric ward, at 3 different hospitals on 4 different occasions. Then I would have to explain my absence in not working, why I wasn't able to work. Then I would have to explain why I'm depressed. And I have to explain my transgender. And I have to explain my concerns for my family and my son. And all of these concerns and these personal issues. What employer is going to give me an opportunity? First of all, I'm transgender. Second of all, I'm struggling with depression. Third of all, I have an autistic son that needs my attention round the clock. Fourth of all, I've been in many hospitals of late. Fifth of all, I've been very emotionally depressed and even had thoughts of suicide. And sixth of all, I am struggling with social phobias and cannot work in an environment where there are a lot of people around me. I literally have to work by myself or in a lonely setting or work from home. And I know this job market is terrible, and I know this economy is terrible. So what real chance do I have? And that merely means that I only have the life insurance perspective to look at in saving my family. And I'm not crazy. I'm just being realistic, you know? I don't want my family in the streets in the middle of the winter, struggling and freezing to death. God almighty, that would be the worst thing ever. I could never live with that. I would feel so ashamed that I led my family to this. No freaking way. My son is autistic. He needs help. We need people to help too. I applied to the AICPA Benevolent Fund because I'm really desperate and I'm struggling. I also have the long-term disability paying out. I'm behind on my life insurance. God forbid it lapses. I can't let that lapse. I have to pay that. Otherwise, if I took my life, my wife wouldn't get any money from them. And I got to get that paid before the 15th of December. And it's like $2,600 that I have to come up with. So I really gotta find a way to save to get that paid. And I'm stressed to the max. I was in the hospital yesterday with my son, getting him admitted, and I was there for almost 12 hours. I'm worn out, and we're struggling very much. And my son has become so violent. He actually physically punched a school teacher on Friday. I had to go pick him up at the school, bring him home. Then he was very, very, very difficult to manage, and he kept messing up my computer by changing settings and going on websites he shouldn't be going on, downloading nonsense that is damaging to my computer, and it screwed my computer up, and I had to lay out $500 to get it fixed, and I don't have that kind of money. So I told Maddie that he's got to stop doing that. But he kept doing it. And it kept screwing up my computer. So I said, Maddie, listen, I'm going to get you a laptop, even though I don't have the money for it. I was that desperate. And I didn't even want to do it because he did a bad thing. But I got him one. And I got him a nice one. The problem was he was very frustrated because the laptop is with Windows 8, and Windows 8 has just come out, so there are still like bugs in it, you know what I'm saying, like technical issues, and he was getting very frustrated. And this new computer that I just bought him, he just picked it up and threw it down to the ground. And when I said, Maddie, pick it up, he started screaming and going crazy. And I went to pick it up, and then he comes and punches me in the face after I just bought him the computer. And then my wife comes and intervenes, and he punches her in the face. His own mother, God almighty. I was ready to call 911 then. But I don't know anymore. When I call 911, they point the finger at me. They call Child Protective Services. And they blame me because I'm transgender. I'm wearing a dress and I'm a father. And they discriminate against me. And it's not fair. My son needs help. I need help. Our family needs help. But we're trying to survive and cope. And it's not easy. You know, I still am burdened with these pressures, and I don't know if I'm going to survive. I may just decide to end my life by the end of the year. Unless things happen that help us and a miracle comes about, there's a good possibility that I will end my life by the time I'm 53. And just to start living as Emily at 52 would be such a heartache, because I'm finally happy as a woman. But I'm also struggling. How can I ever be happy as a woman if my son is struggling and miserable? It's just such a... I saw my mom pass away at the age of 49, where she just literally gave up the fight. She wound up in the psychiatric hospital and then the medical hospital, and she just gave up. She took out all the feeding tubes. They kept trying to administer it. She kept pulling it out. All she kept saying was, I just want to leave. I want to die. I want to end it already. And then my father, 23 years later, is very lonely, isolated, went back to drinking, and he jumped in front of a train. So sometimes life is not always fun. It's depressing. And now my boy, my son, who I love dearly, and even though I dress as a woman, I don't feel it's hurting him. I'm trying to teach him to accept people for who they are. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm of sound mind, but I'm also struggling with depression. I'm struggling with transitioning from male to female. I'm struggling with the fact that we may lose our house in a month or two. I'm struggling with the fact that I don't ever think I'll be able to find a job in this job market, especially given the fact that I'm transgender. I suffer from depression. I have an autistic son that needs my attention and devotion. I've been hospitalized in 3 psychiatric hospitals, and I have been fighting depression and suicidal ideation. So I'm gonna be really finding it difficult. And all I can say is, anybody who suffers from depression, they need to address it immediately. They need to get help. They need to go to a doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, hospital, whatever. Please don't let depression take away everything that you stand for in your life. It's very important that you get your depression resolved, and it doesn't happen overnight.